In question 20, we're given two tiles and we're asked to work out the difference in area. So let's look at the word area. Area is the amount of surface inside a shape. Try to learn that. So it's the bit inside. So we're going to compare the area of that and work out the difference. Now they've told us the dimensions of the square tile. They've said that this width here is 20. And because it's a square tile, this dimension or this height is also 20 centimeters. So let's put centimeters there. So with the rectangular tile, we're told that it is 2 centimeters narrower. 2 centimeters narrower. That simply means that it's just slightly thinner. So we need to take 2 centimeters away from there. So we do 20, take away 2. And if you count backwards from 20, you end up on 18. So now we know that this dimension here is 18 centimeters. They've also told us that this length here is 3 centimeters longer than the square tile. So we need to add 3 centimeters. So we need to do 20, add 3. And if you add 3 to 20, we end up with 23 centimeters. So now we know that this dimension here is 23 centimeters. So our first task is to work out the area of this square tile. Now I can do it this way, 20 times 20 in columns. And we know that this is the ones column and this is the tens column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the 0 with both the digits and then the 2 with both the digits. So let's start. 0 times 0 is 0 and 0 times 2 is 0. So we finished with that column. Now we're moving on to the next column. And before we do that, we're going to put a helper 0. It's like a placeholder. So we do the same thing. 2 times 0 is 0. And 2 times 2 is 4. And that goes in the next column very carefully. So now what we do is we simply add these two. 0 add 0 is 0. 0 add 0 is 0. And we have nothing there. So it's simply nothing add 4, which is just 4. Now that there is our answer. So the area for this is 400. Now I want you to know this. It's centimeters squared or square centimeters. Now I'm going to show you another way of doing this. 20 times 20. I've noticed that these both are whole tens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide these. I'm going to hide that 0 and that 0. So what I'm going to do is 2 times 2. And I know 2 times 2 is 4. So now I've got 4. And I simply bring this 0 and this 0 back. And I end up with 400 as before. So this is a shortcut. If you have two whole numbers and they both end, or one of them ends in 0, you can do this shortcut. Now moving on to this, we need to work out the area. So we need to multiply the width and the length. So we need to do 18 times 23. And I'm going to use the grid method. So let me draw the grid. I'm going to split this 18 up into one lot of 10 and 8 ones. I'm going to split 23 up into 20 and 3. Now what I'm going to do is 20 times 10. And we know whenever you multiply a whole number by 10, you write this number down, 20, and you simply add 1 0. So it's 200. So 20 times 10 is 200. 3 times 10 is 30. 20 times 8. So I'm going to hide this 0 and I'm going to do 2 times 8. And I know my 8 times table. So it's 8, 16. So I'm going to put 16 down. And then I simply bring this 0 back. And finally I have 3 times 8. And I want you to know you can do 3 times 8, or you can do 8 times 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do my 8 times table 3 times. So I started here, 8, 16, 24. So I have 1, 2, 3 lots of 8. So I want 3 lots of 8. So I know 3 times 8 is 24. Now my next step is to add all these. So let me start at 200, 160, 30, and 24. And I'm simply going to add these using column addition. Now this is my ones column, this is my tens column, and this here is my hundreds column. So 0, add 0, add 0 is 0. Add 4 is 4. Now careful here. 0, add 6 is 6. Add 3 is 9. Add 2 more is 11. So we put the 1 here. And we carry the 1 to the next column. Now in the hundreds column we have 2, add 1, which is 3. Plus this 1 we've carried over, which makes it 4. So our answer is 414. So the area for this shape is 414 centimeter squared. So square centimeters. Now we want to know how many square centimeters this area is larger than this area. So we simply subtract the 2. 414 take away 400. And it's easy to spot the answer with this because this is 400, this is 414. You can see it's going to be 14, but let's do that anyway. 4 take away 0 is 4. 1 take away 0 is 1. And finally, 4 take away 4 is 0. Now I can put a 0 here, but as we said before, we can always ignore the leading zeros. So we don't need to really write that. So our answer is 14. So the area of the rectangular tile is 14 centimeters squared bigger than the square tile. In question 21, we're given a sequence of numbers. The first one and the last one are missing. And we've been told that the difference between each number is the same. Now our first step is to find out what the difference is. So if I go from 1 to 1 5/8, I simply add on 5/8. So now I know if I go that way, I need to add on 5/8. And if I go from there to there, I need to add on 5/8. Now, if I go to the right, I add on 5/8. But if I go backwards, I need to take away 5/8. Because that is the inverse. And the word inverse simply means opposite. And we know the opposite of a plus is a minus. The opposite of an add is a subtract. So let's go ahead and find this first. 2 1/4 plus 5/8. So let's write that as a fraction here. Now this here is a mixed number. Let me write that down. Mixed number. And learn these words because they're very important. Why is it a mixed number? Because you have the whole part and the fraction part. And we now need to turn this into an improper fraction. So let me write that down as well. Improper fraction. All that means is the numerator, which is the top part, is bigger than the denominator. So let me write these words down. Numerator and denominator. So how do you turn this mixed number into an improper fraction? Remember it this way. The big number multiplied by the bottom number plus the top number. So let me write that out. So it'll be 2 times 4 plus the top number, which is 1. So 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 makes it 9. And then all you do is simply write it over the bottom number there. So let me write that fraction here. So this I'm going to write as 9/4. This 9 has come from here, and this 4 has come from the denominator. Plus 5/8. Plus 5/8. Now if you notice, my denominators, the numbers at the bottom, are different. And my next step is to make them two the same. Now I can see straight away that I can turn 4 into an 8 by simply multiplying by 2. And whatever I do to the denominator or the bottom number, I have to do to the numerator or the top number. So let me write that fraction here. So now I have 9 times 2, which is 18. And 4 times 2, which is 8. Plus 5/8. Now what I have here, and this is where it's easy, because the denominators, the bottom numbers, are the same, I draw a fraction line and I put an 8 at the bottom. And I simply do 18 add 5. And 18 add 5 is 23. Now the numerator is bigger than the denominator, so this here is an improper fraction. Now how do I turn an improper fraction into a mixed number? I ask myself, how many 8s are there in 23? So again, this is where you need to know your times tables. So let me do my 8 times table. 8, 16, 24. We've gone past 23, we can stop there. So how many 8s can I get from 23? 1, 2. So what I do, carefully I put a big 2 and a fraction line. Now I've used 16 and I've got 23. So how many have I got left over? So if I count from 16 up to 23, I end up with 7. And this 8 goes at the bottom as the denominator. So my answer is 23/8 or 2 7/8. And remember, you can leave your answer like this or turn it into a mixed number. Now here, to work out the missing box on the left, we need to do 1 minus 5/8. So we're going backwards. So our calculation is 1 minus 5/8. Now you'll note here that this is a whole number and this is a fraction. What I like to do is turn this into a fraction by dividing it by 1. Now what I have is one fraction minus another fraction. And if you notice that the denominators are different, and this is quite straightforward, I can turn this into an 8 by multiplying the denominator by 8, and whatever I do to the bottom number or the denominator, I have to do to the top number or the numerator. So I multiply this by 8. So I'm going to now write this fraction here. 1 times 8 is 8. And 1 times 8 is 8. Minus 5/8. So we'll write that there. Now it's straightforward because the denominators on both the fractions are the same. So you do a fraction line and you simply do 8 take away 5, which is 3. So the answer is 3/8. Just before we finish, I want you to learn these few points. Inverse means opposite. And in this case, the opposite of a plus is a minus. The opposite of a times is a divide. A mixed number is a number like this, where you have the whole part and the fraction part. In a fraction, the top part is called the numerator, and the bottom part is called the denominator. And if the top part is smaller than the bottom part, if the numerator is smaller than the denominator, it's called a proper fraction. And if the numerator is bigger than the denominator, it's called an improper fraction.